67. Okay.
Yes. The figure is increasing, sir.
Yeah, okay.
So let's start, sir. I welcome all the participants in session 6 of Teachers Training Program. The topic of discussion in this session is curriculum for engineering education. For this, I would like to heartily invite Dr. Joshua Ernest, Professor, Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, NITTTR Bhopal. With almost 6 years of industrial experience and additional 26 years in the area of teaching and training of technical teachers and industry executives, his major areas of contribution and specialization are renewable energy, wind power, curricular development, competency-based curriculum development, laboratory instruction in technical institutions, and instructional media related to electrical engineering and renewable energy. He is also PhD of Examiner of Electrical Engineering related to renewable energy scholars in renewable energy and also evaluating PhD thesis in the electrical engineering. He has designed, developed, and implemented online wind power courses for technical teachers in collaboration with Gotland University, Sweden, and Wind Farm AB, Sweden. He is also a resource person for Sweden wind power training projects and online wind power training to China Electric Power Research Institute, Beijing, China. He has also served as faculty of Colombo Plan Staff College, Manila, Philippines, for the in-country program on competency-based education. He has also written various books like Electricity from the Wind, Basic Principles for Yash Publications, Wind Power Plants and Project Development for PHR Learning, and Engineering and Education Curriculum for NITTTR Bhopal. He has also authored many national and international research papers and also undertaken a number of projects like developing and maintaining national level competency banks for engineering degree and diploma programs in electrical and electronics branches funded by MHRD. Undertaken the project identifying the skill required of electrical, mechanical, and civil diploma engineers in the state Gujarat and competency bank under direct central assistance project. He has also international collaborations with Gotland University, Sweden, Windfarm AB, Stockholm, Sweden, and Life Academy, Karlstad, Sweden. So I heartily invite Dr. Joshua Ernest. Sir, please.
So good afternoon, everybody. It is a pleasure to interact with you.
Good afternoon, sir.
And all my earlier speakers, they were talking a lot about outcome-based education, outcome-based curriculum evaluation, the theory part of it. My presentation would be exactly how to practice this, how to implement this. So that will what I will be discussing about in this 1.5 hours time. So how the outcome-based curriculum can be implemented in engineering education. So whatever I'm going to speak, it is based on the last 6 years of industrial experience, plus 36 years of technical teacher training in NITTTR Bhopal. I just retired one and a half months back. So I may often say we at NITTTR, though I have started my third innings as a consultant of outcome-based curriculum, but still sometimes because it's difficult to, because you have been there for 36 years in NITTTR, and therefore you tend to say we at NITTTR. So bear with me if I slip on that. So everything that we'll be talking is whatever we have done, whatever we have implemented in various states of the country in outcome-based curriculum. NITR Bhopal, okay, I'll just go to the next slide. Yeah. I have about 6 years industrial experience before joining NITR. So as Professor Shivakumar says, industrial experience with teaching makes a lot of difference in the way you analyze the curriculum, implement the curriculum, and evaluate the curriculum. And 36 years of technical teacher training as a trainer, followed by this. I have written several books. So this is the latest book, that 2 books which I have submitted to NITR Bhopal and which is going to be published by PHI Learning New Delhi. One is Outcome-Based Curriculum in Engineering Education, a handbook. This discusses almost everything that you have already discussed in the last 1.5 days, plus what are you going to discuss in the whole week. So those who want to know more details about outcome-based curriculum in engineering education can refer to this. And I have also written another book, Outcome-Based Curriculum for Higher Education. Now, because UGC has gone into it under NEP 2020, higher education is also going for outcome-based curriculum. So with our vast experience for the last 50 years, NITR Bhopal has been working in the area of outcome-based curriculum, which I'll be sharing with you. And it is based on all that and the researches that we have done in the Indian context. The outcome-based curriculum is going to be what we have implemented, and that I'll be discussing. Now, if you look at this slide, you'll see that I had already published a book on outcome-based curriculum or competency-based curriculum, which is a variant of outcome-based curriculum from the 1990s. Okay, so it is based on this book. This was considered equivalent to a PhD thesis. I'm talking of 25 years back. So that's what it is. It is 1997, you can see it. So before that itself, I have been working in the area of outcome-based curriculum or competency-focused curriculum, which is a variant of outcome-based curriculum. The very first outcome-based curriculum was launched in March 1997 in Mumbai, a polytechnic. I would say in India, this was the first one. And till today, the outcome or the students of this polytechnic has 100% placement right from the last 35, 40 years. So this is one reason why outcome-based curriculum is becoming more and more popular, because the outcome-based curriculum is more industry friendly. Even my thesis in 2001 was on the area of outcome-based curriculum. And I've also written a book along with my colleague, Professor B.L. Gupta, on competency-based curriculum, which is nothing but outcome-based curriculum. So that's my background. The latest is that I have been the chairman of the electrical branch of curriculum development, in which competencies were identified in every course. This is the model curriculum of AICTE, and I was the chairman for the electrical branch. And only in electrical discipline, you will find the competencies required for every course. So I'll be discussing a little bit more about that in the coming slides. The second competency-based curriculum, which NITR Bhopal, the model which I evolved and which NITR Bhopal implemented, was in 2012, almost 11 years back. And it is still running, or it is still being offered. The speciality of this program is that we identified the competencies or the outcomes required by the industry, and we found that you can see that there are wind turbines over here. For the first time in the country, wind power and solar power was introduced as a technology in the diploma program. And because of that, the UG curriculum of Gujarat under GTU, or Gujarat Technological University, also started. When they saw that diploma people have done it, they went it for degree also, they have adopted it. Because till then, or till the beginning of 2000, renewable energy was taught at a very, very tertiary level, I would say, not much in detail. The technology was not talked about. So, but in 2012, the hardcore technology was brought into diploma programs, because of which the UG has also come. And that's because industry survey was done to find out which are the technologies that have come into the industry, come into the market, come into the industry, and whether that is getting reflected in the curriculum. That exercise NITR Bhopal undertook. So we call it the industrial survey. And through the industrial survey, the outcomes required for the industry has to be identified. This is the starting point of any outcome-based curriculum. So I'll come to that a little bit later again. The other one which I'm offering is in Arpit under MOOCs Swayam course. The outcome-based curriculum development is there. So this is being offered twice every year on Swayam platform. I'm the coordinator for that. So those who want to get in more detail about outcome-based curriculum for engineering education can undertake that course. You'll get a certificate also on that. Because in this session, I will be able to give only an overview of what outcome-based curriculum is all about. Next one, in 2017, this is another model of outcome-based curriculum where the competency focus is given. And this is one cover page of mechanical engineering. So this is another model. I'll be showing you the different models. There are various variants of outcome-based curriculum. That's what I want to say. And I'll be talking about the various variants as well. Well, I'm the author of wind power technology. This was written for the industry. Second edition has also come out. This is the wind power technology paperback book. This was written for the university system, published by PHR Learning. This is in the third edition now. So what I want to say is, when you go for outcome-based curriculum, a number of new technologies that have come into the market, that also emerge out, and you can include that into the curriculum. So all these things happen because I have been working in the area of outcome-based curriculum for the last 25 to 30 years. And because of that, all these developments, all these outputs which I'm showing you, they are not theoretical. I have already implemented it. I've already designed it, and therefore all these things are there. I've been a wind power consultant for China as well. When I was there, of course, I look different now because that time I was a bit young. And I'm an academic consultant for the University of Namibia in Southern Africa. And now the organization of the talk. It is in 5 sections. What is outcome-based education, I would say, rather than curriculum? Why our OBE? What is outcome-based curriculum? Why OBC? How to develop OBC? So I know you must have studied in the first 2. You have already heard. So I will not waste time on that. I'll just skip through the slides because I keep taking sessions at different fora for different universities and different organizations. So what is OBE? I know you know more about it, but still, let us see what it is. In a nutshell, outcome-based education is a student-centered education system on what the student will be able to do after they learn. You have seen that I've purposefully put in uppercase all this. What the student will be able to do. And this can be at a macro level, it can be at a micro level. So whether it is at a macro level or at a micro level, they are all learning outcomes. That's first thing that you have to realize. Now, Maker has said, if you are not sure where you are going, you are liable to end up someplace else and not even know of it. R.F. Maker was an educationist, very renowned educationist. So this is a statement So in outcome-based curriculum, you know where you are going, but in traditional curriculum, you do not know where you are going. Let us see this example. In traditional education, the teacher is all powerful, all knowing, and therefore he tries to take the student to what is there in his mind. But the student is not aware which is that destination. But if you look at this now, what is outcome-based curriculum? Outcome-based curriculum is the destination is known. The student knows what he has to acquire, what is the outcome he has to attain, what is the outcome he has to achieve. So the teacher tells right in the beginning where he has to reach. So that is the outcome. And that outcome, the teacher need not teach. The student, if the student knows the outcome, he can learn from the internet, he can learn from the video programs, he can learn from discussing with others and things like that. So if the destination is known, the student can reach Gateway of India by train, he can reach by aeroplane, he can reach by car, or he can go by walking, or he can take a bullock cart or anything. What more he takes, that is the teaching learning situation. That will differ from student to student, but the destination is the same. So that's where the crux lies. That means the student knows the destination, the teacher knows the destination, the examiner knows the destination, and accordingly everybody will work so that the student develops the outcome. Now look at this cartoon. He says, I taught my parrot to whistle, but his friend says, I cannot hear him whistling. He says, but I don't hear him whistling. Then he laughs and says, ha, ha, ha. I taught him. I did not say he learned it. So that is the difference between outcome-based education and traditional education system. We may teach, but has he learned it? That's a total issue. Outcome-based education is not about teaching, but about learning about what the student can display. I'll just rush through it. Therefore, what is OBE and what is it is not? OBE, or outcome-based education, is an educational approach that focuses on the display of different types of learning outcomes. Now I'm using the word learning outcomes. That is the key to outcome-based education. Learning outcomes can be at different levels. I'll talk to you about that in the following slides. OBE is not what teachers teach, but what the students can do due to their teaching. Or we as teachers may teach, but outcome-based education wants that the students should do something because of our teaching. Now, why OBE? Industry says that today's engineers are knowledge-based and less application-based. So if you look at this cartoon, what do you see? This is not my making. I have given the website address also from where I have taken. So is the situation, so we have to examine ourselves what is happening and what best can be done to rectify or remedy this situation. So first of all, we should understand where we are or where we are operating. Technical education is one system, the higher education is the supra system, and the engineering college, polytechnics, ITIs are the subsystems. And the industry is the one which we are feeding. Okay. So the industry, all of us are teaching the students so that the student will get employment. So the question is about employability, whether it's higher education, whether it's technical education, and that is where OBEs become more and more prominent. Now, first of all of us should understand what is the industry definition. If we understand that definition, it will be much easier for us to teach, because then in the back of the mind, we know what an industry is. So we have developed this. An industry is a enterprise. You can read it for yourself, which helps to earn one's livelihood. So basically, it is the career. Okay. The enterprise can be wage employed or self-employed. So when we are teaching, we should think about helping the student to become an entrepreneur or start their own business as well. If you look at the education system in US and Europe, they stress more on the student starting up something new rather than wage employment. In India, our concern is more about wage employment rather than self-employment. So more and more we have to build in, or we have to teach in such a way, or the curriculum has to be in such a way that self-employment is also encouraged in the students right at the institution level. So now, the major concern of all the stakeholders of the OBE are employable graduates from the diploma, for the diploma UG PG programs through multi-pronged approaches, and one of the solutions is OBE. So what are the reasons? India is now a permanent member of the Washington Accord. International recognition equivalence comes in. Employability is enhanced, right? Hence, NBA has made it mandatory for getting accreditation. Greater clarity to the teacher, industry, and all stakeholders. Helps the students to become lifelong learners. And renders the graduates to be employable by equipping them with industry-needed skills. Now, tell me, just one question before I go ahead. Who are the other stakeholders, or who are the stakeholders of the curriculum? I just want one of you to, or some of you to unmute and speak out. Who are the stakeholders of the curriculum?
Students.
Only students?
Faculties.
Teachers? Okay, faculty. Then?
Industries.
And
industry. Very good. Then?
Institute management.
Administrators. Okay.
Parents.
Parents.
Students' parents.
Okay. And any
society also.
Society. Very good. Very good. Very good. And who is the youngest stakeholder? The student, right?
Student.
So your curriculum should be addressed to whom first? Your curriculum should be addressed to the student first. Reason being, the curriculum is going to, first of all, impact the student first. And if the student can understand the curriculum, all other stakeholders can understand it. That is the first and foremost thing you must remember when you are developing a curriculum or implementing a curriculum. Fine? Okay. Now, what is the difference between a traditional curriculum and outcome-based curriculum? Just a run through before I go on how to improve how to develop an outcome-based curriculum. Not much thought is given about employment, and employability is the focus. Sorry. Minimum involvement of stakeholders is there, while maximum involvement of stakeholders is there. There is a gap between formal education and career requirements. Competencies are identified from the industries of the respective professions, and therefore that gap is very less. Exit expectations of the syllabus not known to the students, as I had shown in the previous slide, while exit expectations of the curriculum always known to the students much in advance. The fifth one, input-based, teacher-centered, where the teacher instructs and the student memorizes most of the time, while outcome-based is student-centered, where the student displays the outcomes after learning. So these are the 5 major. The 6th one is student learning usually is passive, while active learning is always there in outcome-based curriculum. Fewer use of media, maximum use of media. Teacher controls the learning in traditional system, whereas self-directed learning happens in the outcome-based curriculum, or should happen. Still, if we continue, teacher is a facilitator rather than an information dispenser. 9th one, learning mostly concerned with lower order thinking skills or lots, while the focus of learning in OBE or outcome-based education is higher order thinking skills or HOTS. So 10th one, soft skills such as communication skills, analytical skills, affective domain skills often neglected, while in soft skills it is built into the curriculum of the OBE and hence cannot be neglected or does not go neglected. The last slide says, generally, norm reference testing takes place. I'm not going to talk about what is norm reference, while it is criteria reference testing. Norm reference testing means you compare the comparison of the outcomes is between the students, whereas in criteria-based testing or examination, is the outcomes is the basis or the reference point based on which you see whether the student has learned or not learned. Then less of progressive assessment, while more emphasis on progressive assessment. This is one key factor that has to be considered in outcome-based curriculum. Generally, the question beginning is what is common, but what type of questions totally absent in question paper in outcome-based curriculum. And in traditional system, it is pass or fail, or in outcome-based, it is whether he is competent or not competent. So let us see now what is OBC, or where does this fit? There are 4 stages which you have seen. So I will be discussing. I'm not going to teach about outcome-based teaching learning. Outcome-based assessment was touched upon a little in the earlier session, but there are many things yet more to be talked about. Maybe somebody else will talk about it, but I'll be talking about outcome-based curriculum in this session more. Now, remember, the curriculum is the constitution of any educational program. All of you will have to remember this often or all the time, and refer to the curriculum every time when you are teaching. When I say refer to the curriculum, it is not what the content says, but how to treat the contents. The treatment of the contents is more important rather than the content itself. Now, there are different types of curricula. If it is plural, it is curricula. If it is singular, it is curriculum. I do not know how many of you know about it, but there are different types of curriculum. Some of you must have learned in some other training program, just for a revision. I'll just come to this later. One type of curriculum is the individual-based curriculum, where the entire curriculum is developed based on the development of the individual. For example, it can be the kindergarten curriculum, where the content is not important or the subject is not important. The child's development is more important, and therefore it is called an individual-based curriculum. Fine. So that is one type of curriculum. The other type of curriculum is subject-based curriculum, where the individual is not important, but the subject is important. For example, if I take BSc chemistry, there the student has passed his school system, entered the college system. So now the development of that subject or the researches in that subject That is more important, and how the student can acquire the subject knowledge to more and more depth and width. That is more important. Therefore, the curriculum of BSc, MSc, BA, BCom, and for that matter, such courses, the subject, how the focus will be on improving or researching into those subject areas. Therefore, it is subject-based curriculum. So the curriculum is developed according to that. How it is developed, we will not be able to look into it. Maybe some other session we can look into it. Next comes society or industry-based curriculum. This is what we are talking about, or I would say what the professional, some people call it the professional curriculum, but the way educationists all over the world talk about is society or industry-based curriculum, where what the industry wants, accordingly the curriculum is developed. Fine. But the government or the society says, if that is the thing, then individuals, the culture, the attitude, all those things, if that is not considered, then that fellow will not be useful to the society. So the best thing is to have an eclectic approach. It is called the eclectic curriculum, where the individual's need is taken care, the subject need is taken care, and the industry need is taken care. But then developing such a curriculum, you really need experts or a team who will look into all the aspects so that a balanced curriculum is developed. Now, whether it is individual-based curriculum or subject-based curriculum or industry-based curriculum, all of them can be outcome-based. So outcome-based curriculum does not mean any one of them. An outcome-based concept is built into individual-based curriculum, the subject-based curriculum, and the industry-based curriculum as well. So what we will be discussing now is basically how outcome-based curriculum can be inbuilt into the industry-based or society-based curriculum. Now, when we are talking about engineers or management experts, let us very clearly know that there are basically two categories of industries. One, I call it the manufacturing, marketing, and service type of industries, or MMS type of industries. The other one, where 90% of the normal engineering colleges, the graduates from the normal engineering colleges get employment. And then the research and development type of industries, where only 10% of the engineers get employment. Now, the question is, how do you teach? Are you teaching so that the students become an expert in manufacturing, marketing, and service type of industries? Or are you teaching, or is your curriculum tuned to MMS type of industries, or is your curriculum tuned to R&D type of industries? Now, Tier 2 institutes, when I say Tier 2 institutes, it is a terminology used by National Board of Accreditation, NBA. Tier 1 is fully autonomous institutes or universities where they can make their own curriculum. When it is affiliated college system, I call it the hub and spoke university system, where you have a central university followed by different colleges affiliated to it. If you are a Tier 1 institution, you can make your curriculum in order looking at where your students, you want to take the students to, or what type of students come into your college or university, and what type of and where they will get maximum employment. Looking at that, you will have to design your curriculum. But whether it is for R&D type or whether it's for MMS type of industries, outcome based can be inbuilt or weaved into the curriculum. Therefore, now there are two issues about it, which I have already discussed in various fora. We need basically two types of engineering programs. The BTech, or which will prepare the students for the MMS type of industries, and the BE for the R&D type of industries. If we categorize these two industries, most of our engineering education problems can be solved. The students who do not want to go into R&D, their curriculum will be different. Those who want to go into R&D, their curriculum will be different. So I have talked all about, and which matches with NEP 2020 for the improvement of engineering education. Now, all these things I've discussed in this paper. It is, if you put my name, Joshua Ernest, on Google and write curriculum or competency-based curriculum or outcome-based curriculum, you'll get a number of hits. Because most of my papers are available on the internet. You can access it. And most of my papers I've written based on the researches that I have done and the curriculum development projects which we have done for various states, especially Gujarat and Maharashtra. They are more industrialized and they are more forthcoming, and therefore they have one of the best outcome-based curricula in the country. That's what I would like to say. And based on all those experiences, these papers, these curricula that we have developed from NITR Bhopal. Well, that is the need of the hour. I'll just go ahead. Now, OBE and curriculum, where does it go? Rather than the accumulation of course credits, marks, and grades, OBE involves a restructuring of the curriculum, assessment, and reporting practices in education to reflect the attainment of higher order learning outcomes at the threshold level. Now, what is this threshold level? What is higher order outcomes? I'll give you an example. You say, explain the working of induction motor. Because I'm electrical, I'll take that. Or else you can say, explain the working of a 4-stroke IC engine. Something like that. So for the academicians and for you, doing that is okay, but the industry is not interested in the explanation of the working. The industry is interested in designing a motor or improving the performance of a motor or troubleshooting a motor. That is what? That is higher order learning. Explain, describe, calculate. These are not for us. These are for academicians. This is important, but for the industry, that is not important. So in outcome-based curriculum, we are talking of those outcomes which the industry wants so that the student can be employed. Suppose I can check the performance or if I can improve the working of an induction motor, that means I am at the analysis level of Bloom's level taxonomy, and I have already crossed the comprehend level, remember level, understanding level, and even application. So when we are talking of outcome-based curriculum, we have to think of higher order learning outcomes and at the threshold level. What do you mean by the threshold level? I'll talk to you about when I come in the following slides. Now, I just want to say, NITR Bhopal has been working in the area of outcome-based curriculum for the last 50 years. Many people in the country do not know about it, but in the Western region, we have been doing, so this is called the TTP Bhopal model in the 1970s. Even before I joined NITR, that time it was called TTTI, NITR Bhopal has been doing this job. And in that time, outcomes were called as objectives. When we're talking about Bloom, that time we talked about objectives. Gronlund is another educationist, talked about objectives. Objectives, skills, then all these terminologies, they are all outcomes. The common term is outcomes. So objective is also an outcome. Skill is also an outcome. So what is an outcome then? Outcome is anything which is observable and measurable. Anything which is not observable and measurable, that is not an outcome. That all of you should always remember, right? Okay. The second one that we did was in the 1990s. So this is another model of outcome-based curriculum, which this one was the first model. This is the second model, again in 1990s, which Netra Gopal has done. Now, outcome-based curriculum design approach, how does it help? Or what is it all about? See, in OBC, the focus of the student is to acquire the different types of LOs. I'm using the word learning outcomes as LOs. The focus of the teacher is to develop those LOs, and the focus of the examiner is to assess the display of the LOs. When I say display, means the student has to demonstrate, he has to show that he has acquired those skills. It can be through written examinations, it can be through practical exercises, it can be through project work. Now, one thing that I would like to share over here is that in engineering education or in engineering colleges, polytechnics, and for that matter, engineering institution, we should stop using the word experiment. Instead, we should start using the word practical outcomes or outcomes. Practical outcomes in the sense or practical exercises. Because engineering education is not for experimenting things, but it is to develop the skills and outcomes which the industry wants. While in BA, BSc and other things, they are experimenting because that is a subject-based curriculum, where you experiment certain things to find out more new things. While in engineering education, it is not experiment, it's a practical exercise to develop the skills required by the industry. So let us stop using the word experiment and start using the word practical outcomes or practical exercises. Okay, now all these things that is there in these two books, okay, I just wanted to say, whatever I'm discussing, everything is there. It is still not published. PHI has just taken my manuscript and they are about to publish it. So maybe you can contact them later on. Now, when we're talking of outcome-based curriculum, I think I have time, yes. There are some important foundational definitions which all of us should be very, very clear. One, the term course. The term course is defined as a collection of outcomes. Just a minute. Okay. Yeah. The term course is defined as a collection of practical outcomes, its related cognitive domain outcomes and topics, affective domain outcomes, or only a group of practical outcomes, or only some collection of topics to be learned in a semester. So the course may be very brief, where only the topics are given, or the course may be quite long, where the treatment of the topics are also given. So a course, some people still call the course a subject, but a course is taken from the subject. A subject is a organized body of a wide knowledge, organized body of knowledge, or OBK we call it. And from there, when a chunk of information is taken, that becomes a course. Okay. The second important definition in outcome-based curriculum or outcome-based education is learning outcome. It is defined as a visible display by the learner due to the learning experience, which is measurable at different exit levels. When I'm talking of different exit levels, it means it can be at the program level, it can be at the course level, it can be at the classroom level. So when you're teaching in a classroom for one period, at the end of the class, what is the outcome that you expect? That is also a learning. If you want that at the end of the class, the students is able to calculate the heat dissipated in the circuit That's also a learning outcome, but it is at a very, very micro level. So the learning outcome can be at a very micro level, or it can be at the universal level, which is the PEO. Therefore, PEO is a learning outcome at the universal level, while at the classroom level also, there are outcomes. That is also a learning outcome. I'll come to that a little more. Now, every rightly formulated LO will have only a single action verb. Maybe you must have noted there are some, even I sometimes make a mistake by adding 2 action verbs in a learning outcome, but never do that. We should, because only 1 action verb is recommended, because the student will not be confused when he sees only 1 action verb. If you have 2 action verbs, there will be a lot of ambiguity, and the student will be unable to understand whether I have to do the second action verb or the first action verb. Therefore, it has to be only 1. That has to be taken care. The term aim stated at the universal level is an open-ended statement about an educational program which excites people about the direction they have to go. This is analogous to the program educational outcomes. The third definition is goals. The term goal stated at the global level are subsets of the aim, generally more in number, are defined as broadcast statements that indicate the endpoints of an educational program. This is analogous to the program-specific outcomes or the program outcomes of the NBA. We'll look into that. But these operational or foundational definitions has to be taken care. The term competency is stated by the industry at the macro level and is defined as an integrated performance of a macro level job involving a cluster of skill sets at the threshold level of performance without wasting raw material, damaging equipment, and hurting oneself. So what is a competency? A competency is the ability to perform a job at the industry. And therefore, it is at the macro level that we talk about. Another important foundation definition is the course outcome. The course outcome is stated at the meso level, which is also an industry-oriented statement and is a subset of the competence. There are generally 4 to 6 COs, which are defined as the integrated performance of the micro-level outcomes associated with the 3 domains of learning to successfully complete the subtask of a competency. Let us go to the last one. The term educational project. Now, this is very, very important. You have a number of projects. It is defined as a purposeful, integrated, student-centered activity, planned and designed and performed by a student or a group of students to solve or complete the broadly defined or complex problem which require the students to integrate the various skills associated with the 3 domains of learning acquired through the course or program. It is very complex, you mean to say. Now, there are 2 terms very broad. That is okay. There are 2 terms that are important. One is broadly defined and complex problems. For diploma, it is a broadly defined problem which you are helping the students to acquire, while for the UG program or for the degree programs, you are teaching the students to solve complex engineering problems. This is the basic difference whenever you are designing or implementing the curriculum that is with you. Now, the problem with most of us is we teach in such a way that we are not teaching our students to solve complex problems. We teach them to solve most of the time broadly defined problems only. And that is why our students are, many of our UG students are unemployable as told by the industry. Now learning outcomes, how do you formulate? It will all start with action verbs, right? And they should be smart. That means they should be specific, they should be observable, they should be attainable, they should be reasonably challenging, and they should be time bound. So when we're talking about this, you can see that they have to be smart. So how do you formulate the learning outcomes? See, the entire exercise revolves around the formulating of the learning outcomes. Now, let us see the different levels of learning outcomes. The PEO is the one which the students will have to perform in the industry after working there for some time. They are written at the universal level, while the global level outcomes are the program specific outcomes or PSOs, and they are written at the global level. The macro level outcome are the competencies based on the which the industry gives, and they are at the macro level. The meso level outcome is also industry based, and it is within a course, while the micro level outcomes are the practical outcomes, the cognitive level outcomes or the unit outcomes, and the affective domain outcomes. Now, if you look at this, the entire thing, all these are all those or learning outcomes within a course. Now, how many courses will be there in a UG curriculum? There will be about 40-45 courses for the whole program of 4 years. While, okay, and after each program, what the students will be able to do, that is a PEO. So all our learning outcomes, whether it's a CO, whether it's a competency, whether it's a program specific outcome, whether it's a PEO, whether it's a program outcome, whether it's a micro level practical outcome, whether it's a unit outcome. So all our outcomes, all our learning outcomes, but at different levels. That is what we'll have to remember. Just have a look at this picture so that you will get an idea of how all the learning outcomes are. Right. Any questions so far? One of you or two of you can mute and ask me if at all by now. Others, I have been talking all the time. Yes. No questions? Then I'll go ahead. Okay. Now, you have seen this picture in the earlier slides also when some of our other speakers were telling. This is a slide which NBA talks about, AICT talks about when you're talking about SARs and filling up the SARs and other things. The problem with this, there's one great problem which has occurred in NBA as well as AICT, is that there is a big jump between, now if you look at this, the PEO, between the PEO and the CO, there is a big jump. And that is what I want to say has been solved by NITR Bhopal for the two states of Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Chhattisgarh as well. We have introduced another term called competency, which is relevant to each course. Now, in the earlier case, NBA talks about from the PO, you come straight to the CO. But how will you arrive at the CO? See, the CO is also an industry-oriented statement, and most of the teachers, most of the curriculum, they write from their own knowledge. They write from their own understanding. But that is not the way. That means how many COs will be there in one course? Maybe 4 to 5. If there are 40-45 courses, that means 40 into 4, 40 into 5 is about 200 COs they'll have to formulate. And if there is any mistake in formation of the COs, your entire teaching also becomes faulty. Therefore, in order to check whether the CO, whatever is written, is in tune with the industry needs, that is very, very going to be very difficult unless you have the competencies in place. Because the industry tells its need in terms of competencies only. What is a competency then? A competency is, if you look at this picture, what do you see? For every course outcome, it is a combination of a practical outcome, it's a combination of a cognitive domain outcome, and it is a combination and a affective domain outcome. That means practical outcome is workshop or laboratory related. Cognitive domain outcome is classroom related or auditorium related within the four walls, while affective domain outcomes are those outcomes which cut across both practical and cognitive domain outcomes. Most of the time, the affective domain is weaved or developed through the practical outcomes or through the projects that you have to give. Therefore, project work has become very, very critical in outcome-based curriculum. The more the projects you have, the more the outcomes can be integrated. That means the industry is not interested only in the practical outcomes, nor are they interested only in the outcome, cognitive domain or theoretical outcomes, nor are they interested only in this. They are interested in the integration of all the three types of outcomes which make the CO. That means a CO or the course outcome is an integration of the practical outcome, the theoretical or unit outcome, and the affective domain. If this has to, and from there, the topics are derived. Now, if you look at this, how you arrive at the topics in curriculum development, first you find out what is the occupation. From the occupation, what is the job profile or what job function the engineer has to do. From there, you arrive at the program educational objectives. From there, you arrive at the program outcomes or the PSOs or program specific outcomes. From the PSOs, the competencies are derived. From the competencies, the course outcomes are derived. And from there, the topics and subtopics emerge. But generally what happens, in the traditional system, curriculum was developed by opening up 4 or 5 books and writing down the contents or the topics of those 4 and 5 books. But in outcome-based curriculum, the difference is you arrive at the topics by analyzing the occupation or the job which the industry says. And from there, the topics and subtopics emerge out. And then the subtopics and topics are clubbed together to form an organized body of knowledge, and that is how the books emerge. So in outcome-based curriculum, you write books so that the competency can be developed. While in traditional system, you are looking at the topics to find out whether some outcome can be developed or not. So there is no definite there's no definite way of looking at the outcomes in traditional system, but in outcome-based, there's always a definite way of arriving at the outcomes through the topics and the subtopics. That means the treatment of the topics, basically if you go from bottom up, from the topics, you arrive at what is the treatment you have to give to that topic in the practical outcome, what is the treatment you have to give in the cognitive outcome, and at the affective domain. So this overall picture gives you how an outcome-based curriculum is developed and how an outcome-based curriculum is implemented. When you are developing a curriculum, it is top-down approach. When you are implementing the curriculum, it is from the bottom-up approach. This is what has to be remembered all the time. Now, when you are talking of the learning curve, learning outcome curve, which we have developed over the last, because of our research and projects through the last several years, decades, I will put it. See, you call a person as competent, or at the exit outcome, he or she is called competent if he has acquired the, or he is able to exhibit, or he is able to display the different types of cognitive, practical, and social outcomes or skills. Skills and outcomes are the same because both are measurable. So some call it skills, some call it outcomes. In the academics, we call it outcomes most of the time, while the industry calls the outcomes as skills when they reach the industry. So that's the basic difference. Now, in outcome-based curriculum, the basic issue is we are bringing the industry more and more into focus. Earlier, we used to teach and the industry used to do something. Now, the outcome-based curriculum is bringing the industry more and more closer to the institute and to the student, so that by the time the student graduates out, he's ready, he's job ready or work ready, we call it. So now, what is the threshold level? Threshold level is that acceptable level which the industry agrees, because within the 3-4 years, you can't make a student an expert in that job. If a student has to become an expert in job to perform that job, that's called the proficiency level, and that can happen only at the workplace. So that is what we call it as the PEO, or program education objectives. That means in the as the academia says that after becoming competent by acquiring the cognitive skills or the cognitive domain outcomes, practical domain outcomes, and the social domain outcomes, they will become competent, and over the years they become experts. So this thing should be there in this learning curve should be there in the back of the mind. So our aim is to develop these skills and to integrate them to perform the job of that course. That means in every course there will be one competency, and to arrive at that competency, you have to ask the industry, or you have to do a job survey and find out, well, in this course, what is the competency? Or the industry says, well, he has to improve the working of the induction motor. If the industry says this is the competency that they want from UG people, then your course would be induction motors. Induction motors will be the name of that course. But why do you teach induction motors? So that when the student reaches the industry, he will be able to improve the performance of the induction motors. Induction motors is common for diplomas, but in diploma, the industry does not want the diploma holder to improve the performance of the induction motor. What the industry wants from a diploma holder is troubleshoot the induction. So the content can be the same, the course can be the same, but the outcome expected by the industry is different for the diploma holder. The outcome expected by the industry from the UG fellow or the degree fellow is different for the industry. So the competency of an induction motor for a diploma will be different. The competency required of an induction motor from the UG fellow is different. And that is where the entire development of the curriculum development process differs. And this has to be there in the mind. So if you know that the competency required of a diploma holder, you will teach differently for that.
कुरडईची भाजी करण्यासाठी 2 वाट्या कुरडया
Somebody
व्यवस्थित शिजवून घ्याव्यात.
Maybe you can unmute. Yeah, can you? Yes. So what I would like to say is, if you know the competency, the way you teach the student will be different for a UG fellow, and the way you teach a diploma will be different. The projects that you will give for the UG fellow will be different for the same course. That's what I have to say. Okay. So this curve is very, very important for you to understand the threshold level. What is the threshold level? Competencies at the threshold level. That means at the minimum, not the expert performance level, but the minimum acceptable performance level by the industry. So now let us just summarize what we have done. Okay, I'll be rushing through. The PEOs are at the universal level, while the POs and the PSOs are written at the global level. The competency is written at the macro. PEOs will be 1 or maybe 2 at the most. POs, there are 12 for UG program, 7 for diploma program. PSO will be 2 or 3 for each for the UG program. While the competency level, they will be 1 for each course, 1 competency for each course. That means if there are 45 courses, there will be 45 competency statements written at the macro level. So I call it the ULOs, or universal level outcomes, are PEOs. The global level outcomes, or GLOs, are the POs and the PSOs, while the macro level outcomes are written at the macro level. They are the competency. There will be about 40-45 statements depending upon the number of courses. Then we have the meso level outcomes of MELOs. They are we call the MELOs. The course outcomes are written at the meso level outcomes, and they are 5 to 6 for each course. That means if there are say 45 courses, there will be, if there are 6 outcomes, 6 5s are 30, 0 and 6 4s are 270 course outcomes will be there for a UG program, roughly. Then you have the micro level outcomes of MILOs, we call it, where for the theoretical outcomes, we call it the unit level outcomes. The practical outcomes that is performed in the laboratory, and the affective domain outcomes, that is the team working, the safety consciousness. These are the outcomes. Housekeeping, cost consciousness. These are the affective domain outcomes that are developed in the laboratory or workshop or field, and they are at the micro level. So these are all learning outcomes, but they are written at various levels or formulated at various levels. So if you don't have these outcomes written in your curriculum, when you're teaching, you can formulate on your own so that the students knows what he or she has to acquire. I think this gives you an overall picture of what the different types of learning outcomes are. All are learning outcomes, but when they are written at each level, we have given them a name. NBA has also given them names. That's the only difference. So this is what it is all about. Now you look at the another graph, the PEO and the topic relationship, which we have developed. If you're talking, PEO is 1 or 2, they are more general in nature. And as you go towards the right, they become more and more specific. As they go up, they become more and more in number. That means PO is 12, PSO is about 2 or 3. Competency will be more. That means 1 competency for each course. That if there are 45 courses, there will be 45 competencies. Course outcomes are derived from the competency. Therefore, the course outcomes will be again more. That means, as I said, 270 competencies may be there. They are more specific. Then the affective domain outcomes, okay, they are lesser than the practical outcomes. Okay, therefore, affective domain outcomes are many and they are more specific. Then the practical outcomes, again, it is more, and they are also more specific, right? So in a course, there may be 10 to 12 practicals, while in a cognitive domain outcomes, or the unit outcomes we call it, because you have each unit of contents. Based on the contents, the unit outcomes have been made. Cognitive domain outcomes will be many. For each unit, there may be about 4 or 5 unit outcomes. That means 5, 6 or 30. That means in a course, the practical outcomes may be 10 or 12. The cognitive outcomes written at the application level will be 30, 35, right? And from that, the topics and the subtopics are arrived. So you see, all these are learning outcomes, but they are named differently because that's what NBA wants. And for understanding and for analysis, these names, these jargons are important. But all of them are learning outcomes. So this graph gives a very good picture where you are and what you are doing in curriculum development or curriculum implementation. Okay. Now, look at this model. This is the latest model that Nitra Gopal has developed, that has been implemented, and that is being evaluated also in the state of Maharashtra. So, so this is called the program structure. I cannot go much deeper into it. You can refer to my book for that, how we have done it. A lot of exercises, examples are given there. More explanation is given there. So if you can look into my book, those two books, you can know a little more about that. And this is a model which we have practically evolved and we have developed. It is very, very comprehensive. First, we have done the occupation analysis, right? Based on the occupation analysis, we arrived at the competencies. From the competencies, the program structure was made. The program structure includes the number of courses, the credits, the marks, and things like that. And then from each program, for each course, then you have the course outcomes. Then you have the micro level outcomes, which you see over here. At the cognitive domain level, at the practical domain or practical outcomes, and the affective domain outcomes. So from these three, you arrive with the topics and the subtopics. Then you prepare the specification table or table of specifications, you call it. I'll show you what is that. You identify the student activities, develop the course presentations, and this. So top to bottom, you develop the curriculum, and bottom to top, you implement the curriculum or teach. This is an exhaustive model. Just to show, that's why I said this is an overview of the outcome-based curriculum that we have done, we have implemented in various states. Now, how to develop the outcome-based curriculum? Remember, I'm just going fast a little bit because time is running short. This is the curriculum cycle that every program will have. So if it is a 4-year program, the curriculum cycle will be called over 5 years. Reason being, after the student graduates, he has to work 1 year in the industry. Then only you can take feedback whether the outcomes that you are developed has been useful or not. Accordingly, you will then revise the curriculum. So this is what it is all about. From the industry, you do the industry needs identification. Based on the industry needs identification, you design the curriculum, and that curriculum is then implemented in the university, and then again the repeated cycles it starts. So every curriculum has to be repeated if it is a dynamic curriculum. The curriculum is never a static curriculum. It has to be revised as and when, or continuously it has to be monitored to find out whether new technologies has come into the market, whether new technology or some things have to be removed from the curriculum, so that within that 4 years, the outcomes required by the industry is achieved. So our major focus of outcome-based curriculum is employability. Whether the graduates from that particular program, mechanical, electrical, civil, instrumentation, all that, are employable or not. That is the basic premise based on which the outcome-based curriculum is developed. Okay, I'll just skip this slide again. Now, there are 4 major stages in curriculum designing. One is curriculum planning. In curriculum planning, what all you do? You arrive or you derive the course outcomes, and you arrive at the competencies. From the competencies, you, based on that, you do an occupational analysis, you design the curriculum. Based on the curriculum, you implement the curriculum, which most of you are doing now, because curriculum designing is not generally done by the at the university level, by the course committee or board of studies, or you can say maybe some of you may be involved in curriculum development designing as well. But curriculum implementation, every teacher will have to do. And then you have the curriculum evaluation. That means you evaluate whether the curriculum is relevant or not, or some improvements have to be done. And then you have the feedback at different stages. Altogether, you call it the curriculum development. So curriculum development means it has 4 stages: curriculum planning, curriculum designing, curriculum implementation, and curriculum evaluation. And most of you teachers, or most of us, are involved in curriculum implementation. Some of you may be involved in curriculum designing. Curriculum planning and curriculum designing, they are distinct activities, but then sometimes the same group will be doing that as well. Well, curriculum evaluations, maybe some external agency may be evaluating the curriculum to find out how effective your curriculum is, okay or not. Now, it's very important when you're designing a curriculum, you have to consider the Washington Accord, Sydney Accord, and the Dublin Accord. Now only we call it as diploma engineer, while in the West and everywhere, they call it as the technologist. A person graduating from the polytechnic is called a technologist. So, first of all of you must remember that when you are implementing the outcome-based curriculum, you are developing the students to solve complex engineering problems. That is very, very important, because that is what the Washington Accord wants. While diploma holders, they will be teaching in such a way that the students, the graduates, will be able to solve broadly defined engineering problems. While the Dublin Accord or the ITIs, there the students are taught so that they are able to solve well-defined problems. Now, what is this complex engineering problem? What is the broadly defined problems? Some indications we can get there, but unless you design them, unless you teach accordingly, then only you will be able to understand. But if you start implementing the curriculum to solve this, it will become much easier for you. So next we go to what are the complex problems? If they are solving from the first principles of mathematics and engineering sciences, then they are called complex engineering problems. If they are using analytical tools appropriate to their discipline, then it is broadly defined. And if they are using codified methods which have been proven, then they are called well-defined engineering problems. So now, this has already been taught. So I'm just telling you, because I think in the earlier speakers have taught, and I think later speakers will also speak about it. But the Bloom's taxonomy is very, very important. There are different taxonomies, but for engineering education, Bloom's taxonomy is considered most relevant, and that is why NBA is also talking about it. Now, how you do this? This is a very big exercise, and this has to be incorporated when you're developing a curriculum. You have to cognitive domain taxonomy is written as unit outcomes, and that has to be written well formulated, for which we need to have another 1 week program for this totally, if you want to develop a curriculum, because this is just an overview I'm giving. Now, just to give an example of how the 6 levels are there, because there are management people, pharmacy people, so I've taken a common example, simple example to put it. state the direction in which the sun rises. Everybody will say east. Okay, it's remember level. Understand. How does it become understanding? Explain why the sun rises in the east. Okay, right? Now I just want to ask a question here. Is there any difference between explain and describe? Maybe somebody, one of you can unmute and say, is there any difference between explain and describe? Any one of you? All of you have slept or listening. Is there any difference between explain and describe? One of you can please unmute and or two, any one of you can just say. I just want to know. This is very, very critical question which I've asked you.
In describe, usually we give definition of something, and in explanation, there can be a long story to make sure what is happening with that particular term.
So they are different or they are the same?
No, both are different. In describe, we have some standard definition by which one can analyze the things like how it is
But
happening.
definitions will come in the remember level. See, when you say define something, it is memorizing only. Therefore, definitions will come in the remember level.
Sir, describe means to explain, to give some description about the something, some theorem or some theory. Whereas the explanation is it explain means it explains with some examples, with some more examples.
Suppose examples are not there, then if examples are not there, it is explanation. It is not an explanation.
Explanation can have many.
Sir, describe means
Because you
depends
use
on
these terms
the
very often.
appearance. I think it depends on the appearance, or
Okay.
explanation is the working of something, or
Yeah, very good. I think there you have done you answered that correctly. See, will you say explain the table? Yes or no?
no, sir.
What will you say?
Describe.
Very good, very good. You will never say explain the table. You will say only describe the table, because you are describing what it is. It has a tabletop, it has 4 legs and things. It has 2 drawers and things like that. When you describe what it is, when you want the answer to what, then you will use the word describe. When you want the answer to why and how, you have to use the word explain. Is it okay? So that difference has to be understood, and both come under the understanding level. Both are at the same level. But whenever you want the answer to what, it will be described. Whenever you want the answer from the student, how and why, you'll have to use the word explain. Okay. So you have to, why I told this is because in question papers, often it is misused. Both the terms are misused. So we'll have to be very careful about that. Okay. Next, coming to apply. Identify the north direction in a jungle by observing the sun. Now, up to remember and understand, it is okay. Okay. From apply, the industry is interested more in apply, analyze, evaluate, create. That has to be taken care. So, but to reach the application level or analysis level, you need to go. You need to start from remember. So when you teach, you will start from remembrance, define something, say something, explain, describe. But finally, by the time the student graduates, he should have reached the application level. That's what is most important. All of us as teachers has to think. If we are going to ask in the exam only explain, describe questions, or 80%, 90% of the questions are explained and described. Therefore, our students are unemployable. If we start asking the questions at the application level, then we will be able to help our students. See, the question paper is the de facto curriculum, sort of. So that has to be taken care. Now, I think most of you must have read this. identify the north direction, interpret, choose, plan. One very common mistake which I want to share, and I'm running short of time, is that many of you say analyze the system. Is analysis, analyze the system, is that outcome? Is that an outcome? This is seen in many places. Is that an outcome or not an outcome? Please speak. I can unmute and speak, because we are it is a discussion, it's an andragogy. I have to stop. I'll conclude, but I want the answer to this. Is analyze the working of the system. Is it an outcome or not?
It's not a question.
Sir,
Actually.
it's
No,
it's
I'm
an,
talking of an outcome. Is it an outcome?
yes, sir.
Analyze
It has out.
Yeah. Continue. Please continue.
Yes, sir. It has outcome.
Is it an outcome?
But
Yes or no?
yes.
Now, what is a smart outcome? It should be specific. What are those smarts? SMART. All outcomes has to be smart. That means specific, measurable. Okay. What is A? What is R? Reasonably challenging. T is time. Okay. So is it measurable? Analyze. Yes or no? See, the word analyze is not measurable. Therefore, it is not an outcome. Keep this in mind, all of you. A very common mistake done by many teachers. In order to analyze, what has the student to do? Tell me, how can you know whether the analysis is something taking place inside the head? It is, you cannot measure it, you cannot see it. Only outcome is that which can be measured, which can be demonstrated, which can be seen. So how will you do that? Interpret the working of the system. That means he will either orally say or write down the interpretation of that. That if he is able to interpret, that means that student or that graduate is at the analysis level. That is what has to be understood. Writing the word analyze will not become an outcome, or it is not an outcome. That has to be very clear. That is why the word, when I came across the word interpret, I thought I'll ask you that question. So evaluate, choose the best possible out. That means there are many options. From that he has to choose. So that means evaluate means there are many materials the graduate has to choose one. There are many methods, the graduate has to choose one. That is what the industry expects. The graduate has to work at the evaluation level and the creation level, analysis level. Are we asking the questions at this level? That is the $1 million question that I have to ask all of you when you are implementing the outcome-based curriculum. And this is the table of specifications that I want you to understand. Every outcome-based curriculum should have this TOS, or table of specifications, where you have for each unit. If there are 5 units in a course, each unit will have the teaching hours is there, and at what level the questions has to be framed. You can see if you are at this level, or if you are at this level, that means you have crossed the R level. Okay, so this has to be important. But how this has to be developed? Now there's no time for that. I'm just giving you an overview only. So you have, this is Dave's taxonomy. DAV was a Gujarati educationist. He's still there, but he's living in Germany now. But he developed this, and this is the most relevant taxonomy for the practical outcomes. That's what I want to say. Imitation, manipulation, we need another week's training if you want to know about this, how to develop the curriculum, how to or include this in the outcome-based curriculum. So then you have the Rothwald's curriculum for outcome-based curriculum. This is receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, and characterizing. So this is also, there are many taxonomies in the affective domain, but this is the most relevant for engineering education. That's why we are talking about that. So I'll just stop over here, and because my time is running out, and I think I have finished all my slides, most of the, I mean, almost all the slides. The last one was this one. Okay, thank you, friends. Any questions if there is time for that? Otherwise, we can email to me. My email was there in the first slide, or you can even phone me up if anybody wants to interact with me. Maybe, of course, you can message to me on my WhatsApp. That's my WhatsApp number. So as you can get in touch with me. Best thing would be you can, once the book is published, you can get hold of it. That is the only book available in India today that will be published on outcome-based curriculum for engineering education, higher education. No book is there because that has been contextualized in the for the Indian context, with the Indian culture, with the Indian situation, with the hub and spoke universities that we have. Thousands of colleges which are affiliated to central universities, tier 1, tier 2, all those things are there. So thank you, friends. Over to OCT. Maybe you can conclude it.
Thank you very much,
If you have
Joshua.
no questions. If you have any questions, well, otherwise we conclude it. I think we are running short of time.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Joshua, sir. A very nice and interactive session on curriculum for engineering education. And participants have learned a lot about outcome-based education, how to enhance the employability in industries, learning outcomes at various levels of education, competency-based education, level of learning outcomes, PEO and topic relationship, various outcome-based curriculum models, and accords and characteristics of outcome-based curriculum model. Thank you very much, sir.
Welcome.
Hope you will join in future, sir.
Yes, welcome. Yes. Fine. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Participants, you can join after 10 minutes for the next session at 3:45 p.m. Thank you.
Oh,